Hello, viewers. This is the story of Mrs. Honey's holiday. Mrs. Honey needed a rest. She decided to go away for a few days with her grandchildren. On the plane, they ate lunch from little plastic trays. And there you can see, that's Mrs. Honey with the hat right over there. And in front of her are her two grandchildren. One is Peter, the other is Emma. Early next morning, they looked out of the window of their hotel room. In the square below, some children were skateboarding. "I wish I could do that," sighed Peter. Look, you can see over here they're at the hotel. You can see there's a hotel right there. And that's Mrs. Honey right there. And that is Peter and Emma. And Peter is looking at the kids who are skateboarding. "Well, when I was a girl, I used to roller skate," said Mrs. Honey. "I was rather good at it. It must be the same as skateboarding. You can do anything if you try." And there we go. Mrs. Honey is imagining herself skateboarding. It isn't very different from roller skating, is what she thought. But the kids had a different view. This is what they imagined Mrs. Honey skateboarding. Whoops, she's just fallen down, hasn't she? Anyway, they decided to try. And it was fun. And there you can see Peter and Emma, both of them on the skateboards. And it looks like it was fun. Afterwards, they went to the pool. A girl was diving from the high board. "I wish I could dive like that," sighed Emma. "I'd be scared," said Peter. "I used to dive," said Mrs. Honey. "I won lots of trophies. You can do anything if you try." And here we go. Mrs. Honey imagined herself diving. Ooh, it looks like a perfect dive. But the kids had a different idea. The kids imagined Mrs. Honey diving, and then you can see there was a large belly flop. But they tried. And guess what? It was fun. You can see Mrs. Honey right here, and there's Emma, and there's Peter, and they're trying out everything. Next day, they had a picnic. Some children were riding ponies. "I wish I could ride," said Peter. "Me too, but I might fall off," said Emma. "I used to ride superbly," said Mrs. Honey. "You can do anything if you try." Mrs. Honey imagined herself riding. "Ooh, she looks pretty fancy." But the children also imagined Mrs. Honey riding. And there you can see they imagined she was probably riding a donkey and not really being good at it. But they tried. And it was fun. There you can see Mrs. Honey right there. And there's Peter and there's Emma. That evening, there was music and dancing. "I wish I could play the guitar," said Peter. "I wish I could dance like that," said Emma. "I won a prize for dancing," said Mrs. Honey. "You can do anything if you try." And Mrs. Honey imagined herself dancing, and she's wearing a frilly dress while she does it. But the children imagined something different. They imagined Mrs. Honey dancing with flowers in her hair. But they tried, and they both learned a lot. And you can see over here, Emma is learning how to dance. And over here, you can see Peter is learning how to play the guitar. Ole! Next day, there was a regatta. 2 boats were racing. "I wish I could row like that," said Peter. "I used to row," said Mrs. Honey, "and I won many races. You can do anything if you try." So here they are watching the regatta. There's one boat here, there's one boat here. There's Mrs. Honey, there's Emma, and there's Peter. And, "Oh goody, we can go out in a boat," cried Emma. "And you can show us how you did it, Granny," added Peter. So Mrs. Honey tried. And the children thought it was fun. But you can see poor Mrs. Honey, she's a little exhausted. Her face is all red. The water's going whirly-whirl here and whirly-whirl there, and she's probably not going too much. Anyway, the next morning, Mrs. Honey and the children were invited to go on a boat trip. Some people were deep sea diving. "It looks deep," said Peter, "but I'm sure we can learn. You can do anything if you try." "I have a bit of a cold today," said Mrs. Honey. "Perhaps next time." So Mrs. Honey and the children, they imagined themselves diving. So here they are there on the boat, but here they're imagining what it would be like if they went diving. Isn't it exciting? Here there's a huge octopus right there. There's so many fish. Anyway, the holiday was nearly over. It was time to pack. "We seem to have more things to take home than we had when we arrived," said Mrs. Honey. "Never mind, we'll get everything in somehow. You can do anything if you try," laughed the children. And that was the story of Mrs. Honey's holiday. Good night, kids. Good night.